Hey, Tom. Here's one that'll interest an old-timer like you. Come over here. How do you like that?
Now that's what I call a real picture. That's the finest sight I've seen so far in this here war memorial.
I thought it'd get you in.
Yeah, get any bushman in. You can keep all your tanks and your motorised artillery and your jet fighters and what have you. This is still the most stirring sight any man could hope to see.
1918. Yeah, a long way back, Tom, old man.
Yeah, but I can remember it as though it was yesterday. And this here picture brings it all back. The final dash on Damascus.
Citation. Presenting authentic stories of heroism and gallantry taken from the histories of war. A story of the bravest of the brave. The Australian 3rd Light Horse Brigade.
They were tough boys, the light horsemen, but extra good soldiers. I remember we got a pommy officer. La-di-da, he was, one of them British toffs. He came up to us on a beautiful mount, a chestnut, polished up like cedar. And this here toff, he had a monocle in one eye. So next day, the whole regiment, every man jack, turns up with a monocle in one eye. And the toff canters onto parade. He takes one look, then quick as a flash, he picks the monocle out of his eye, tosses it into the air, and then catches it with his eye and says, "Bet you can't do that." Well, the boys cheered. He couldn't go wrong after that.
The 3rd Light Horse Brigade comprised the 8th Light Horse Regiment from Victoria, the 9th from Victoria and South Australia, and the 10th from Western Australia. They were men of the land. They volunteered from the cattle stations of the inland, from the sheep stations and the dairy farms, from the wheat belt and from the timber cutters' camps. They were rough and rugged men who loved the music of the thundering hooves and the smell of horse and saddle sweat. They also loved to fight.
Yes, I remember it all. Yararish, Rafah, the 1st and 2nd battles of Gaza. And who could ever forget Beersheba?
You don't see the old horse anymore, do you, Tom?
No, and you don't see Beershebas anymore either, Fred. 31st of October, 1917 it was. We was in support while the 4th and the 12th regiments went in against the Turk trenches and artillery. First time in history it was that cavalry was sent in against fixed defences. We made history all right that day, did the light horse.
There they go! And here we go!
Yeah, 2 Turk aeroplanes machine-gunned us as we lined up. Then the Turks opened up with their artillery. But they were firing on too long a range, and the shells burst behind. They gave us everything they had in the way of small arms, but the light horsemen kept galloping on. Straight on they went, and the sun was sinking. And everywhere was filled with dust and the flash of shells and the sound of it all, Fred.
I can imagine it, Tom.
We didn't know if there was a gully ahead or wire or anything else. It was just keep going like the hammers of hell. And our men went in over the Turks and we had Beersheba. 1,200 prisoners, guns and stores, and all around buildings were going up in flames. And the dust was there that our horses had raised as we raced through town. It was great fighting there with a horse under your knees and your bayonet in your hand. Yeah, different to that other time. That other time.
Yes, different indeed to that other time, when the men of the Australian 3rd Light Horse went into action without their horses and won for themselves the title of the bravest of the brave. They won that proud title in their first action, not in the dust of Palestine or Syria, but on the barren slopes of Gallipoli. The bravest of the brave. A citation for men who fought among the brave men of Anzac. There are those of us who claim that the attack by the 3rd Light Horse Brigade at Gallipoli was the bravest deed at Anzac, the bravest deed that ended in costly defeat. It was August the 7th, 1915, and the stage was set for the attack on the Turkish trenches at the Neck on Gallipoli.
On your toes, men?
Where, Jake, sir? Oh, these Turks will wonder what's hit them when the 3rd Light Horse Brigade goes over.
Good man. Our bombardment. That'll make Abdullah keep his head down. Not long till dawn. And then, action.
At 4 a.m. on that day, our guns opened their heavy barrage, supported by shell fire from our warships in the bay. The 8th Light Horse were to be first to go, and at their head was their commander, Lieutenant Colonel A.H. White, who insisted on leading the first line in. They checked watches, listening to the thunder of the shells. Then, suddenly and unaccountably, the bombardment ceased.
That bombardment shouldn't have stopped. 7 minutes to go before we go over. 7 minutes. Good heavens, the Turk will have time to be ready and waiting for us. Ready and waiting.
And the Turks raised themselves warily from their dugouts in the startling silence. They knew what was to follow, and in that space of 7 vital minutes, they made ready to meet the Australians.
That's the Turk clearing his guns. Something's gone wrong. They'll be ready for us.
Stand to, men. 3 minutes to go.
3 minutes to go. And I couldn't throw a stone into the Turk trenches just across there. Turks lined up too deep in their trenches and still more trenches behind that.
All right, men. Go!
As the light horsemen leapt from their trenches that day and charged forward, they were met by a wall of fire that hacked them down. Colonel White, at the head of his men, went 10 paces before he fell, and his men lay around him, 5 or 6 yards from the parapet they had left. The first line of Australians had been cut down in less than half a minute. Yet 2 minutes later, the second line was in position.
Almost time to go. Ready, men? Go!
Soon the men of the second line lay dead a few paces beyond the bodies of their comrades. Then the men of the 10th Regiment of the 3rd Light Horse Brigade filed into the trenches that the 8th had just left. The evidence was fresh and close before them, and every man, as he took his place there, was certain that he was about to die.
Give us your hand, Jack. We've been good mates.
Ready to go, men? Stand to.
Where is it?
Go!
After the third line of men went down, efforts were made to halt the useless expenditure of lives. But meanwhile, the fourth line took their places at the trench wall, ready for the charge. Even as discussion took place at brigade headquarters to halt the useless attack, they went in and were mown down. The sun rose on that terrible scene. Of the 8th Light Horse, half of the total of 300 men had been killed and 80 others wounded. The 10th lost 9 officers and 129 men. And not once during that slaughter had the men of the 3rd Light Horse Brigade displayed the least sign of hesitation in following what they believed to be their line of duty. On that day, they won themselves the name of the bravest of the brave.
They gave us our horses back after that. Put us in east of the Suez and let's have a go.
Many originals with you then, Tom?
No, not many, but they gave us our heads. Out we went with horse flesh under us and plenty of room to gallop in. Do was get our own back. And didn't we ever?
It was the morning of the 1st of October, 1918, that the long road to glory reached the summit for the 3rd Light Horsemen as they pursued the retreating Turkish army in the Baradia Gorge.
Now they're on the run!
Keep after them, men!
Sir! Ahead!
Yes, ahead! That's Damascus!
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 Yes, in we went. Plumes in our hats and swords in our hands, galloping at full pelt into Damascus. Yes, you can see it in that painting. And I can still feel it in my veins. The horses were as excited as we were, and we went in between those rocky hills, galloped like the men from Snowy River through Damascus, and cut the road to Homs. Well, with Damascus in our hands, the desert campaign was just about wrapped up. Yes, we'd got our own back.
An armistice was signed with the Turks in October 1918, and after 2.5 years of fighting, the bravest of the brave, the men of the 3rd Light Horse, took the saddles off their horses. Their campaign that had begun so tragically was over. Citation. These stories are authentic. The program is produced at AWA by Donald Crosby for Army Public Relations.